Here's some in the background.
It's good you couldn't hear because Brian just opened up with the most cliche James Hobart comment ever. Can you guess what it is?
No, what did he say?
No, come on, guess. You know.
I don't know, something about being a team athlete or babyface killer or demo
we're getting
boy.
Close. We're getting close.
Yeah,
go with that middle one. Babyface killer. Go with that one.
Yeah, I don't need to keep guessing. Sevan, what are you drinking?
Good Dude's coffee.
Oh.
On ice. In a roadie cup.
I like that.
I don't condone roadies. So
Brian,
how do you...
Nice to see you too.
Brian, when someone says something to you like that, nice to see you, you say, oh, nice to see you too.
I you know what, I think I spaced out for a second there. I thought he was talking to you, my bad.
How do you guys know each other?
I got lost in my eyes.
I'm not really sure how James knows me or what he recognizes me from, but I do know that he's given me some compliments in the past when in passing or when I have seen him. So I've always appreciated that.
Yeah, Brian, we've met a couple times just throughout CrossFit life journey.
Yeah, it's always surprising to me. Like, I'm never quite sure. Some of the athletes are pretty oblivious to like the media or the stats guys or the analysts. So I'm always a little bit caught off guard when one of them's like, "Oh, Brian Friend, yeah, I remember you from this or that." And you did that to me one time, which I always think it's kind of cool.
Well, I'm glad.
Did you do an interview with us? I don't think you did, Hobart. I don't think you were competing at the time. I think maybe you were reffing, but Brian and I met each other. I think we met each other on Instagram, right?
Yeah, 2018 Open.
And then we started doing these podcasts from the regionals. And it was just like, I just met him and I was just like, let's do this. People always thought I was crazy for that, but I met actually two really good people. I think her name's Lillian Fuentes and Brian Friend. And Lillian's still in the space making videos. And Brian went on from, when I met you, you were with OPT's company, right? You were with James Fitzgerald's company?
Yeah, I was, I had just recently done an OPEC certification because the CrossFit box I was working at the time, which affiliated in 2008, that same year, had decided to shift their model towards the OPEX model. And he asked me if I wanted to be a part of that and helped me pay for the credentials to get an OPEX certification. So I just pursued that. And yeah, that was the same year that we met.
And then and then you and myself and Mike Workington, was it just the three of us? And we would have a guest on, like we would have like Katrin on or Dave on or one of the athletes on. And it was cool because it was three different perspectives. Brian was like he really followed the games, to the detail. And I trolled the athletes, and Mike brought in a little bit of color. So it was nice. Did you watch any of those, James?
I don't think I saw those.
Well, fuck you then.
I can take that. I deserve that. Yeah, I should be more up to date on it.
James Hobart is extremely unique in his perspective of CrossFit, as am I. James's uniqueness comes from the fact that he was a super high level participant in the frolicking aspect of CrossFit, the Woodstock of CrossFit, the CrossFit Games, where people go and gather to be with like-minded people, kind of like the Grateful Dead or the Rainbow Gathering, but of the CrossFit community. And he participated. He was overshadowed by obviously one of the biggest names and most awesome human beings in the world, Rich Froning at CrossFit Mayhem.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Austin Malleola.
No, he's blocked by Austin's arms, but not his reputation. And then also James has this, which is pretty amazing, on the complete other side of the house of CrossFit. There's very few people who understand the foundation of what CrossFit is, what actually is, to use Greg Glassman's terms, the DNA of CrossFit, better than James Hobart, because he is not only on the level 1 team, but he is he's a flow master. And he's been with the team since 2010. So it's 2021. That's 11 years.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about the Flowmaster, James? Are you, if I'm not mistaken, are you CrossFit Level 3 or CrossFit Level 4?
I'm a CrossFit Level 4 coach. Yeah.
But that's a pretty difficult distinction to come by, isn't it?
It is a pretty difficult distinction, and one of the main reasons is that the old CrossFit Level 2 was sort of the DNA for what they used to create the CrossFit Level 4 credential. And so the people who passed the old CrossFit Level 2, so this was pre-2010, 2009-ish, they grandfathered them into the Level 4 because that's what they were looking for the Level 4 to be. And that was just really just a 2-day trial by fire. You would come in and you would do some review, and then the next day you would just spend your time doing small group coaching, and then you get evaluated by some of the most senior staff on the CrossFit training department, and you would pass, or a lot of people failed. And then I came through and I helped test out and took the hopefully up and coming new CrossFit Level 4, which was the same thing. It's just a practical application and evaluation of your coaching ability and just different metrics inside that ability. So recently, that was probably a couple of years ago, I went through that process and passed that.
And you
Wow.
say up and coming. I feel like I've been hearing for a couple of years that this new Level 4 is like coming around the corner, but it hasn't really made its debut yet.
Yeah, I've been hearing that too. And I think it's taken a really long time for them to get it to where they want to be. From what little I understand about accreditation and the process of having a course and a test that performs the way it should, because that's like a whole area of study, is when you apply a test, tests are supposed to perform a certain way across a population and, have repeatability and predictability in their application. And because of the nature of the Level 4, you're evaluating someone's ability to coach a group class. It's really, really hard to quantify and encapsulate all those. So it's been a painstaking process in the sense that they just really want to get it as right as possible. So it's been very slow to develop, and it's gone through a lot of different iterations. And hopefully it'll get here. I think it's closer than it's ever been, and I'm sure you've heard that before. But having seen the process come as far as it has, it's definitely headed in the right direction.
I worked with, for many, many years, my colleague was Nicole Carroll, who runs the training department at CrossFit. And when you were talking, I was going to describe her as a perfectionist, but I think a better term is she is extremely thorough.
Yeah.
And she has, she's the one who spearheaded getting, I believe, the CrossFit certifications, ANSI certified. I don't even know what that means, but that means that like someone outside of us says that we're legit. I think it's mostly around the testing process. So this testing process is quote unquote scientific. It is really weird for an organization like CrossFit that has something, and I'll use the example of squatting below parallel, that was frowned upon by so many people in the fitness space for so many years, than to think that someone else can oversee the movements. And that's just one of dozens and dozens of examples. Basically what Greg Glassman did, and correct me if I'm wrong, James, is he's the first to say, hey, I didn't invent anything. These movements are part and parcel with your DNA, and I've just sort of organized them into a practice, a methodology, and an instruction. So it is bizarre anytime it is extremely bizarre when anyone wants to oversee CrossFit, because the first thing that becomes apparent is that they don't even know what CrossFit is. Yeah.
And I think there's, what's interesting too about the model of CrossFit is there's, I don't love this phrase, but there's a lot of proof in the pudding. It's, you have thousands of affiliates practicing the general, foundations of the model in a lot of different ways and having a lot of success. And, but yeah, the accreditation process is really unique. But it was a huge haul, and I know that from what little I was involved with it, not really much at all, but having seen those involved with it on the training department and Nicole Carroll's effort behind it, it was a really huge accomplishment, and it's something they have to upkeep regularly, and it was a huge step in terms of just I don't want to say legitimacy, because I always think seminar staff has been legitimate, but it was a huge step in terms of just growth for the training department and all of their staff.
James, what do you say to people? Someone texted me this the other day, and I gave them a response. I'd love to hear your response. What do you say to people who say, hey, there's nothing new about CrossFit. It's just taking a bunch of old movements and mixing them together. Greg Glassman didn't invent anything. He just branded the movements. How can he patent the movements? What is CrossFit doing? This is just, has always been here. I'm sure you've heard that, right?
Yeah, I was that guy. It was, I literally, when I first started, I stumbled on CrossFit, back in early 2007. And it was through a friend of mine. And then I started training with another buddy. And I would always say to him, I was like, who are these CrossFit guys that acted like they invented the push-up? Like, who cares? People have been doing push-ups forever. Usually, if someone says that to me, it's I don't even have that argument with them anymore. My righteous self, 5 years ago, I probably would have been like, you just don't understand. And it's, but now it's like, well, that's cool. What would it get you to try it? What would you want to do it? And I always remind them too, is like, yeah, I don't necessarily think the special thing about CrossFit is exactly, the fact that we use functional movements. That's a core part of our methodology, but it's the combinations, it's the philosophy behind it, it's the effectiveness of the combinations, it's the community, the experience you have when you're in a gym. I mean, that's what it has always been for me. And I joke about this, like, I thought there was going to be a day after I went to my level 1 where I'd lift up a 95-pound barbell, and I was like, oh shit, I beat CrossFit. I won. I got all the fitness. That was it. Tapped out. And that hasn't happened. Like, you get fitter and you get stronger, and the workouts get more miserable as you get fitter. And what's kept me involved with it this entire time is just the people I meet, and just the experience of shared suffering is something I really value. So I share that aspect of it with them. I don't stress out about that stuff anymore too much. And I know that might seem silly because I spend a lot of my weekends telling people exactly what CrossFit is and how we're different from other fitness programs, but it's that part of it that's been the most valuable to me for the longest.
This reminds me of something that you said, I don't know if it was this week or last week, Sevan, on one of your IG stories, talking about just recognizing the perspective of the person you're interacting with. You used an example of a 5,000 foot perspective compared to a 100,000 foot perspective. I think it was with regard to a different topic, but what I hear you saying, James, is that I recognize, in as humble a way as you probably can, that you have a very elevated view of what CrossFit is because of as Sevan said, all the different experiences you've had with it for 13 years. And when someone's saying something that to you, you have to recognize they don't have those experiences. So how can you meet them where they're at, type of thing. So that's cool that you've evolved in that way in the last couple of years.
And I think it took me a while to get there. It's like, when you first, and I'm still excited about it, but when you first start something, there's that honeymoon period, and you can't do, there's all the jokes. The only, the worst thing about CrossFit, coaches is that they never shut up about CrossFit, and I still am that to this day, but you're excited to talk about it and live it, and everything you do focuses around it. And also because you're so excited to be a part of it, you're just very rigid in your application of it. And that has changed, over the years. And one of the things I think I've learned the most is just the simplicity of the application. Like, I still find myself regularly saying, I'll go do a couple simple, uncomplicated couplets and triplets, 2 movements or 3 movements workouts a few times a week, and I'll feel really good. And, I'll get better at a skill, or I'll get stronger at a movement. I always say to my wife, I'm just like, holy shit, CrossFit just works. Like, it just works. Even in its simplest expression, the basics of the methodology, I'm like, and that's always amazing to me, because if you don't find a lot of things in life that just work and work well, it's like, and that's just, at this point, I'm way more appreciative of that than I ever have been, because I think when you're new and you're excited, you learn something, and then you're like, all right, great, what's next? What's the next step? What's the next cool thing? And I feel like hopefully I've matured past that a little bit, and I just keep finding, so much value, like a sunrise, it's like there's just so much value and appreciation in that simple thing.
I think
you can always do Cindy.
Yeah. And it just works, man.
And it just works.
That's a great example.
So, and it,
Sevan, I can't remember the exact quote, but it was a long time ago. I ran across a quote that was probably ancient of Greg Glassman's. That was something like, once you master the whatever, return to the basics.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I think he says something to the extent of like, pay closer attention the second time.
Yes,
And it takes a while to gain that appreciation, I think, in probably anything you do. But I'm getting to that point now in my application of CrossFit, in my view of myself and fitness. And it's a good feeling, because it's never the day, to find happiness through fitness. It's not like, oh man, I have to have this really complicated thing to do. It's like, I could just go do Cindy, and it's like, I feel better, and it was challenging, and it was fun, and I'm better than I was 20 minutes ago.
I think
that's cool. I think there's a lot of value in that.
I think I've seen a lot of CrossFitters that were, I don't want to say like your generation, but I'm saying like competitive CrossFitters from 2011 to 15, 16, like that time period, are now kind of having that experience of, because they all started out training an hour a day. And then, Rich has told the story many times. It's like one day we just decided to do 2 training sessions a day, and that evolved to 3 training sessions a day. But a lot of people are now almost making that full circle where they're like, I've done 3 hours and 4 hour training sessions for 3-4 years in a row. Now I'm doing 1 hour a day, and I feel amazing.
And it's just also, where you're at in your life. But yeah, that's exactly what it's been for me. And I do think, like, when you remove the choice to like stop competing as an individual or a team athlete or trying to go to the games, you start to realize, well, like, at one time I really did like working out 6 hours a day, but why do I need to keep doing that now? And then you're like, well, if I don't keep working out 6 hours a day, I'm not going to get fitter. And then you go back to just realizing like, oh, well, the 1 hour a day worked for the 5 years beforehand. Why the hell wouldn't it work now? And it still does. But you gotta ride those waves and go through that experience.
Many years ago, someone said to me, where would CrossFit be without Rich? And in them asking that, they were making the implication that he was like integral to the growth of CrossFit. And I said to them, and I was in a long discussion with this person, and I said, hey, we really can't have this discussion. And they go, why? I said, because you're clearly we're building a bridge from 2 different sides of a ravine, and we're not going to connect. Like if you even, like I have to take you, I'm so far not in that camp that any one person made CrossFit that we're not going to be able to make this connect. Because the only person I think you could ever say that about would be, where would CrossFit be without Greg Glassman? But, and then I hadn't heard it for a long time. And then recently someone DM'd me, this is now 5 years later, and they said, where would CrossFit be without Rich and Matt? And I responded, well, where? And I knew that this was going to totally go over their head, and it was my test. I said, well, I think the real question is, where would CrossFit be without a stopwatch? And they go, what's that mean? And for those of you who don't get that, who are listening, I'm sure it's going to come out here in a second. But I do have, for the 15 years that I was with CrossFit, every single day, to the point of ad nauseum, Greg would talk about the vision of CrossFit: optimize human health, optimize human performance, optimize longevity. And he would say it over and over and over. And he was always saying it in new ways. And to be quite honest, it got fucking exhausting. It was like, dude, can we just sit down and have a hamburger and like talk about the bubbles in this, sparkling water or something? But he never, ever, ever stopped talking about the vision. And I'm seeing what I want to see, I'm sure. I am concerned's too strong, because I don't know if I really care. But does it matter if people lose the appreciation for what CrossFit really is? So that we have a theme here now. Some people just think it's a hodgepodge of movements. Then CrossFit didn't invent anything. Greg didn't invent anything. Some people don't even know and they didn't even know he defined fitness. I mean, I understand if you've been doing CrossFit 2 or 3 years and you didn't know that, but by your 4th or 5th year, it's time that like you realize, whoa, this was a profundity, that he defined fitness. He added a stopwatch. He was very clear on the vision, and an unwavering vision, right? I mean, we all who were around during the early days saw that when we signed the Reebok contract, 2 weeks later, he's publicly bashing them because they're claiming they made a shoe that made people's butts firmer. And that's not a dig at Reebok. That's just, corporate.
Yeah.
That's just, people, a marketing team. He was always, so do you have any concerns, can this thing still be super potent without people knowing what they're doing? Is it a naive question I'm even asking?
No,
or do you think I'm just making that up? Do you think I'm just like, hey, he's got fired, he's on the outside, I'm just looking for what I want to see?
No,
I'm open.
No, and I don't think we can lose sight of that Greg created CrossFit, his contribution to defending CrossFit, it's the development. It's like, I do think for the longest time he was the right guy at the time, and he might not be the right guy to continue it into the future or shepherd its growth into the future. And I don't think you can lose sight of that or take that away. I think, though, what's interesting is what you're talking about. I think we've kind of always had to deal with this issue, and I think it just has manifested in different ways. So what I mean by that is, in the past, CrossFit, we all knew CrossFit was so potent and awesome and could be, life-changing regardless of what your fitness level was or who you were. But early on, what we had to deal with was just, other fitness areas, other fitness practices and detractors saying, CrossFit's stupid. Your methodology's stupid. Your definitions are stupid. And then it became CrossFit injures people. And maybe now it becomes, CrossFit is only the CrossFit Games, or CrossFit is defined by the athletes who are the most successful at the games. And it'll probably be some incorrect misinterpretation of the program in some other way in the future. But I think, and I truly believe this, I think as long as whatever is happening inside of affiliates keeps happening, as long as affiliates exist, I think as long as affiliates are going through that level 1 pipeline and sharing in that transmission of culture through the level 1 staff, I don't think the problem you're talking about will, at least in the next, in my vision, in my timeline, will ever become an issue where it just snuffs out what is good and what is effective about CrossFit. It's, I haven't been traveling a lot over the last year, just like everybody else, but whenever I still go into an affiliate or I hear stories from affiliates that I've worked with or friends who own them, I'm still hearing the same stories I heard 10 years ago. And if anything, I'm hearing more robust stories. I'm hearing these stories more often. So I don't necessarily think, we're at that point yet. And like I said, I think as long as the affiliates are out there doing what they do, I think we'll be okay on that end. I do believe that.
When you say the culture, that it's something that's you kind of can't even know about unless you take an L1. And my course was 2 days, and it was amazing. The knowledge that was not only transferred to me and the inspiration, but it was the culture. It was crazy. Can you tell me about the culture? What? Because people come in there like shy sheep and they leave like family members, and it's just 2 days. It's like something you don't experience unless like you're in the 7th grade and you go to a week-long summer camp. But now you're a grown-ass adult and you experience it in 2 days at an L1.
Yeah, I don't know if I can actually, perfectly and explicitly codify what exactly occurs, but I can tell you what I feel when I went through and what I feel when I teach a seminar and what I want to share when I teach a seminar. But one of the biggest things I walked away from my level 1 was, I do think there was enough humility in the seminar that we understand, and the seminar staff and CrossFit coaches who run affiliates understand that there are other ways to improve your life. I could go improve there are other ways, but using, fitness can be an amazing tool to improve your life, and it can improve other areas of your life, whether it's psychological and emotional. But we are just going to only focus on improving your life through movement quality. And I think that was something I really latched onto, right? The focus was relatively narrow in terms of scope. So it allowed trainers at the level 1 to be really effective in delivering that information. It allows affiliate owners to be effective. And on top of that, however seminar staff has done it, I think we've done an excellent job of putting people and getting people in the roles of seminar staff where they genuinely care about sharing how to improve your life through fitness with others. And that is something when you go take a level 1, you can taste that. It's obvious. It's palpable. When I had no desire to coach. I went to my level 1 because I was interested in fitness and I had never been interested before. And I liked training CrossFit methodology. And when I left my level 1, I didn't still want to be a coach, but I was like, I want to go be that person who helps spark that desire to make myself better in others, that teaches at the level 1. And I think that's just one of the biggest things about it. It's just the people on staff and in these affiliates really care about trying to help others improve their lives. And it is something that I think, it's genuine in them. And if it's genuine, people recognize it immediately. And I know Greg always said this, there's also something really special and that makes you very vulnerable when you're physically beat down, but you're emotionally supported. And I feel that in spades in my gyms. It's like, and I see it in my athletes, and it's every time I'm in a workout, I start that workout and it's a fucking existential crisis. It's like I'm in 5 thrusters in, I'm like, why the hell am I doing this? And you start looking around and you see other people doing it with you and you see people cheering you on. You're like, oh yeah, that's why. I always finish a workout feeling better. So I don't know, I don't know, it's a rambly, but those are a couple things I think that really help it keep moving forward and maintain that, like you said, transmission of culture.
James, what do you think about the comment, if I was to say the level 1 is for everyone, the level 2 is for coaches?
I like the level 1 is for everyone. I mean, it would probably be like in your best interest, because the level 2 is focused at, it's a clinic for coaching group classes and small groups and one-on-ones. But I do think there's a lot in the level 1 that just basically brushes over really fundamental teaching skills, and if you're someone who's in a position to teach others and you want to teach others, there's a lot of value in the level 2 for that. And I would say even if you're just in your gym working out on your own and you're interested in having that deeper layer of teaching and correcting and understanding deeper layer of our philosophy, the level 2 could be for you. But yeah, the level 2 is 100% more aimed at having the participants come in, coach, and then giving them some constructive feedback. I wouldn't say it's only for coaches.
You mentioned something. Sevan,
go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, because I have this question for both of you, actually. You mentioned something earlier, James, about how you can do CrossFit and improve a lot of different aspects of your life. I remember listening to Greg one time talk about an experiment he did where he got a client, this person came in, and he said, I want you to write down on a note card any 5 things that you'd like to improve. And this person wrote down 5 things and gave the note card to Greg, and Greg never looked at it. He put it in an envelope in his drawer, he locked it, he said, I want you to give me 1 year. Come into my gym, 1 hour a day, 5 days a week. We're going to do you do what I say. We'll improve your diet a little bit. And a year from now, we're going to take out this note card and take a look and see if these 5 things have improved, whatever they happen to be. And I don't know if you actually ever did that or not, or if in the 28 years of experience that you guys have in CrossFit, if you've ever seen someone do that experiment otherwise.
I've never seen anybody do that experiment. I mean, I've seen it firsthand kind of happen, but I've never done that experiment, no.
Boy, this is gonna. I have no way to say this except to be extreme. If you are a human being and you don't take your level 1, if you don't pay the $1,000 to take your level 1, if you don't write a letter to HQ and beg for a free level 1, if you don't sneak in through the back door and take your level 1, you are shorting your fucking life. I cannot emphasize that enough. If you have kids and you haven't taken your level 1, you are missing out. Why is that? Because it teaches you about struggle and adaptation and how people improve. It's in a controlled environment. It's in a supportive environment, and you learn about nutrition. And those are really the only things you need to know as a parent. You need to know that to offer your kid controlled struggle. And what do I mean by controlled struggle? Meaning you're out with them walking and they fall down, and you have to let them stand up on their own. You turn your back to your child to make sure they don't get hit by a car or a bear doesn't come out of the bushes and get them. And you learn that in CrossFit. You really firsthand learn, and you really, really learn to appreciate it in the level 1 because they go over it in spades, ad nauseum, over and over and over. And then they talk about nutrition, and it's obvious now with the situation the world's in, there's nothing more important than nutrition. And what's interesting, I'm going to segue here and ask you this question, James. It's interesting that nutrition is at the foundation of CrossFit. And we've all heard Greg say many, many times, hey, I'm the fitness guy and I wish I could tell you you could out-train a bad diet. But if you just follow our nutrition program, you'll make it to the fucking 95-yard line. You never even have to do any of our workouts. Just follow our nutrition program. Why is it, and maybe I don't think I'm an anomaly, I think this is normal, that we all get into CrossFit, we get really, really excited about the movements, and somehow that slowly leads us, to, oh shit, maybe I should eat better. You've seen it from all the athletes too, right? You get into CrossFit at 19 years old, you have this desire to go to the games, you brag about how you eat whatever the fuck you want, and then we're watching you at 26 make videos about how you prep your meals, or how you're tell me about the relationship of what you see between human beings and nutrition. The psychology of it a little bit.
Yeah, this is one I've definitely learned more too, because my wife is a nutrition coach, so I get to kind of sit back and watch her relationship with other people and their relationship with nutrition. I think it's kind of a foot in the door principle. I do think oddly enough, and you were talking about this about with CrossFit, like going into your level 1 and why it's so important. It's one of the things that's so important is because it works and it's so freaking simple. It's so like, I'm not asking you to squat clean 225 pounds ever in your life. Does not matter. You could just do the movements with a PVC, a couple times a week. Like, it's going to make you better. Like, it's that easy. But I do think from the outside looking in, and especially with the pervasiveness of information, and this is a whole nother topic, and just how you're just inundated with that shit. I do think from the outside looking in, nutrition is super complicated. I think fitness is made to look super complicated. And, what's the reason behind that? I don't know. I imagine in a market, you want all the people who might buy a product to think it's complicated, because you could step in and be like, I'm the savior, look at my thing and here's why it's great. But I think from the outside looking in, nutrition is really complicated. And a couple reasons I think in CrossFit, we eventually kind of mature to that point where we can start understanding nutrition better and changing habits is one. I do think the easier habit to change is the physical fitness habit of it. And that's because I think it's more accessible for people because we're doing it less often. And it's probably not a habit that in school, for example, you like playground, PE or sports, you grow up and I think you're more accustomed to playing sports, and there's a little bit more attention to detail there, or doing something physically active. Whereas nutrition, there's just no instruction on that. And I've said this forever, the problem with the human body is that it can eat Pop-Tarts for a long fucking time and not die. Like, it would be a much better scenario if you had some statistic where every 99 times out of 100, that 10th Pop-Tart is going to kill you.
Right.
And that's not right. That's not the case. Like,
right.
And this is something Greg has said in CrossFit. Like, you can piss in the gas tank for a long time and be okay. And it's a testament to how awesome the human body is. So hopefully where I'm going with this is, I think it's easy for us to just think, well, I've been eating for the last 20 years of my life, and I've been kicking ass in CrossFit, and I feel great. And you don't make that connection that, well, that's just because the tidal wave hasn't hit you yet. It's back there and you've let it build up pretty big. But if you start being consistent with those fitness habits, it makes it easier for it to be more consistent. You start to understand the importance of the nutrition habits. And I think a lot of us, at least for me, in the fitness community, I taught level 1s for a really long time. And I believed, it was probably 5 or 6 years of doing it. I believed in everything that we taught at the level 1. But I don't think I really understood it until I saw it happen with my mom. And I think it takes people a little bit of time being in the program, being in the community, and then seeing how it affects somebody else and pulls them back from sickness to wellness to fitness. So like, I was totally I believed in it, but I was in my 20s. Like, I was fit by virtue of the fact that I was in my 20s. Like, I was the athlete who was training a lot, eating like garbage, felt great, slept great, didn't matter. But then when I saw my mom in her mid 50s who smoked, who was starting to get older, who I was looking at, and I had this thought in my head of like, oh, this is the point in my mom's life where I would just watch her slowly get a little bit older every year and die. And then it didn't happen. She went to her level 1 and she was that, fairy tale story. She was consistent. She put in the hard work. She listened. She built up her intensity at her own pace. She was, had a great coach. And then all of a sudden at 58, she had abs. And she's no physical specimen like she was. She's no Olympic athlete. She was just consistent. She paid attention. And, she slowly made the correct physical and nutritional choices across. She just turned 61 this year, across 7 years. And honestly, sometimes I swear to God, I think she's going to outlive me. And I think one of the big things, getting back to the point, is just that it takes time for you to be in that community and see those success stories for you to realize, the impact of the eating, the nutrition lesson. And it takes time to change that habit. I think the physical habit is easier to change just because we've been eating for so long and so often. I think it's hard for us to know whether the habits we've created in terms of eating are good or bad for us until we know or until we see it in other people.
It reminds me of like in high school, the kids who were doing all the acid and smoking weed, and they looked like they were having so fun and they were so cool and they were still getting good grades. And now I'm 50 years old or 49 years old and I see them, I'm like, oh, these motherfuckers are weird. Like it took a while for that damage to catch them. And because, that was sort of the problem with the Just Say No drugs campaign. You tell a 16-year-old kid who's, a star on the baseball team that smoking weed's bad and he smoked weed every single day. It's not registering, right? It's not registering. But all of a sudden he's 28 and his brain's not firing the way everyone else is who's 28. And why is that? Well, because he's been smoking weed for 10 years. And by the way, just a quick note, those of you who think smoking weed is fine every single day, the rest of us who aren't smoking weed, you should ask us. You should ask us what we see.
Yeah, I was just talking to a friend about this. Yeah, our perception.
And I'm not anti-weed, but I'm just telling you, like,
our perception of time, I think, is really skewed. As human beings, it's super skewed. It's like our lifespan compared to how long our country's been around or civilization, or is one relatively short, and then two, it's like it's hard to see 5 years in front of your face. So it's like, yeah, I feel great for the last week when I've been partying hard and doing whatever, eating like shit. But it's like, yeah, man, you're going to be here for another 50 years. You're going to keep that up. Like, what kind of dents are you putting in the car?
Right. And some people wreck their car. Like now more and more in civilization, as we see people getting really, really obese in huge numbers, we're seeing people actually bend their frame. And what do I mean by bend their frame? When you bend the frame of a car, that's it. It's done. You never unbend the frame of a car. Yeah, you can still drive it around, but your frame is bent. And we're seeing people in there. I see young kids, 10, 12, 14 years old. Like if you go into Safeway or something around my house, I see kids. I see a lot of people in their 20s, but they've put on so much weight that they've actually done damage to their vehicle that will never be repaired. Now, it doesn't mean they shouldn't try, but they've done some real damage. They've really stretched out literally they've stretched out their skin, but you just know, you can see them. And once you put on 100 pounds, like that, I don't know if you guys know who Volkanovski in the UFC is, but he put on, he weighed 240 and now he fights at 145. That's not, a lot of people can't do that. Yeah. Yeah. You only have one car.
James, wasn't there a video of your mom doing Elizabeth that came out a few years ago? Am I thinking of the right person?
Yeah. Michael Dalton actually came out to the house through CrossFit and filmed a video with my mom and just talked a little bit about her story, and it was really cool.
Yeah, I remember.
Extraordinary guy, hard worker.
I remember watching that. I thought maybe it was Sevan who did the video, but the production was super high quality, so I was a little skeptical.
Fair.
Hey, James,
but the interviews might have been more compelling. I don't know.
You know what's interesting? As minutes before we get on, I start to get a lot of anxiety before every podcast, and I always think the difference between doing the behind the scenes type of interviews and podcasts is so different. Because in a podcast, you don't want there to be dead air. But in the behind the scenes, the whole trick with the athletes is to create dead air. So ask the question, and no matter what, just be patient. Let it get as uncomfortable as possible until they answer. It's about creating space for other people to feel comfortable to finally come out of their shell. Whereas in a podcast, I can't do that. The second I see one of you aren't talking, I'm like, okay, got to say something.
I'm going to pause now just to kind of create that awkward space.
Did I hear you say you own multiple affiliates?
I said affiliates I've worked with. I'm only a part owner in one affiliate, but that affiliate has a sister gym. So my partners, JC and then Austin Maliolo, the three of us own CrossFit Boston, and then they both own CrossFit One Nation Needham, and those two gyms are both One Nation gyms. Is our DBA, our doing business as name.
And your vocation is you're an L1 trainer and you are a gym owner, CrossFit Boston gym owner. Mm-hmm. And how many L1s have you taught?
I don't count, and I didn't for a long time because I never wanted to know. I don't know why, but I think it's over 300, closing in on 400.
Plus the one you attended.
Plus the one I went to. Yep.
Okay. Is it the same? What has changed? What has changed in the L1 from 400, the one you attended, to the one you're going to teach next week? And by the way, those of you who don't know what the L1 is, I just want to tell you real quick. The L1 is basically the operating manual, and correct me if I'm wrong, James, for the human body. I don't think that there is another one out there that's better, more comprehensive, more accessible, that's taught by people who you won't feel familial with at the end. What do I mean by familial? Every L1 I've been to, I've probably been to like 50. The coaches are there for you to talk to at lunch. They'll hang out with you afterwards. Everyone is your friend. The guy next to you who you think's a weirdo on day one in the first 10 minutes, you'll get his phone number at the end, and you guys will be doing workouts together. You will learn the 22-year-old super beast who doesn't give a fuck about old people will end up leaving friends there with the 72-year-old who took the course next to you and be like, holy shit, we have more in common than I ever thought. It transcends everything. And you walk away with information that you will be dying to share with other human beings, and it will profoundly change your life. And even if you're one of those fucking retards who thinks that you didn't learn anything or that you were above it or didn't get anything from it, I promise you it will become valuable to some point in your life if you stop being a selfish douche. Okay. James, how has the L1 changed from day one to 400 courses ago? I mean, I just think I think that there's some truisms in the world. The sun comes up, and if you take the L1, you're going to be a better person. I'm willing to die on that sword, like, to the end. Like, so.
No, yeah, me too. And I've been very lucky to be, it's funny too, because someone asked me.
And I'm not willing to die on a lot of swords. Like, I'm not a believer of much, but sorry, go ahead, James.
Someone actually who you have done a podcast with before, and you do podcasts with regularly, actually asked me if I ever get bored doing level ones. And I had never, this was probably a couple of years, 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And I thought to myself, I'd never thought of that question. And then two, I was like, no, I don't get bored. And, the foundational pieces of material are the same. We still teach the air squat the same way. Heels down, knees out, chest up, hips below parallel. Like, that hasn't changed in the time I've been doing it. I would like to say what's changed is that we know better now, what we do know, as well as what we don't know. And I think we've polish the course in a way to communicate that more effectively. I think we've organized ourselves. The delivery of the information, I think, is better. We have retooled some of the lectures. We've retooled the nutrition lecture. We've retooled the programming lecture. And I think a lot of this, the retooling, isn't to necessarily say we have to come up with something new and flashy that markets well. I think it just is, how do we communicate our core methodology? How do we communicate these simple, life-changing tools in a more effective way to anybody who comes in? And this is probably my second favorite part about CrossFit. CrossFit would suck if it was only meant for the fittest. It would be terrible. But it's meant for anybody who's willing to walk into your doors and wants to try it. And I think that's one of the coolest parts about it. And I've had people at the level one who had just done their first week of CrossFit. I've had people at the level one in their 70s, and everywhere in between. That's been one of the most amazing things to see, is just the diverse set of people, life experiences coming through the level one. And what I've learned from that and from them is one of the reasons it's never felt boring to me. Ever, ever, ever. And I think if you're, and I think of myself as, if they were to say, what's your profession? I'd like to say to people that I'm a teacher. Like, that's what I think of myself as, is I'm a teacher and I'm an instructor. And if you are someone who's a teacher, I think the most rewarding thing that you can see is watching a captive audience understand and appreciate what you're sharing with them. And I've always found that in the level 1 environment. I always find that in my affiliate environment. And, whoever the powers may be will have to pry that job out of my cold, dead hands. So, not much has changed in terms of like the general understanding of it, but a lot has changed in our ability to communicate and those general principles and methodologies. I mean, just the presentation of the course. The old level 1 was just this like grimorum, right? This tome of 800 pages of Greg's CrossFit Journal articles. And, now it's whittled down into this beautiful hardbound book, which is the level 1 training manual. And it took a long time to get there. It's still the same quality of material, but it's communicated in a way that's, a lot easier for anyone walking in the doors to access.
You said the word tool like probably 10 times. That's one of my favorite words. Like, yeah. I like Uranus. I like tool. And then you used Gamorum. I have no fucking idea what that is. I think that's a guy from like Game of Thrones or The Hobbit, but someone can look that up.
You got it.
Ask him about
Gandalf is from The Hobbit.
He's thinking of Gamora from the Marvel Universe. From what is
not Gamora, like a Grimoire, like the Necronomicon, like a magic book. Sevan's gonna go look it up. He just got up to leave. He's so blown away.
No, he has to pee every podcast. It's part of his routine.
Oh, he's gotta go. It's only been 45 minutes.
James, what's your profile picture?
Sorry, I pronounced it wrong. It's Grimoire.
Grimoire.
Okay. A book of magic spells and invocations.
James, what's your profile picture on your game site? It's been the same as long as I've been following the sport.
Oh, Jesus. Brian, I don't know. How do you even know that? I have to go to the game site now, log in, and look this up just so I can see it.
I'm not talking about the big profile picture. I'm talking about like the circular one in the corner.
Oh, that's Optimus Prime, man. The leader of the Autobots.
Yeah, why did you pick that?
Because I'm a big fan of giant, robots who save the universe. I don't know why I picked that. Because it was a lot better looking than my skinniness up there. That's why I threw it up there. I should probably change that.
No, I don't know if you should, because what I've always interpreted it as is that was you saying that this is a transformative program, and that's why you had a picture of a transformer.
Oh, that's exactly why I had it on there. I mean, because for a long time on Instagram, my profile pic was Godzilla. I don't know what you want to read that into my psyche as, but yeah, I just like that kind of stuff. So that's why that is the way it is. The fact that you picked up on that, Brian, just reminds me of, how much you know. Well, you got eyes everywhere, man.
Have you ever thought about doing commentating for the games, James? Have they ever asked you?
I did do commentating for the games in 2017. Yeah, I did the regionals, and then I did the games with Jeff Brightwell.
Okay. You have a wonderfully soothing and recognizable voice. The other day when I called you on the phone, I was like, oh shit, like I just felt like when I called you to set this podcast up, I was like, holy shit, this is James Hobart. Like that voice, I know that voice. It was a trip.
Oh, thank you. Well, anytime you can't sleep, call me up.
James, speaking of the regionals, in 2014 regional, do you remember what place you took?
I think I took second overall, right? Third, second?
Second. Do you remember who beat you?
Yeah, Matt.
Did you know how good he could be then?
Matt Fraser won, right?
Yeah. Did you know how good he could be then?
I did. I didn't, No, I don't.
Where was that? Where was that regional? That was at a Reebok headquarters.
Headquarters,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was, that was the best regional, and the reason it was outside. It was at the Reebok World headquarters. The Reebok community and the Northeast community was just like, they would just come out in droves to support it. And it felt like you were in like this gladiator arena. It was on this hot as hell concrete. That weekend was brutally hot.
Is that the week everyone was burning their hands at that regional on the handstand walks?
Yeah, and I don't know what their big deal was. It wasn't that bad. But yeah, they were burning their hands handstand walking.
That's a nice man like Hobart saying they were pussies. I'll translate for him because Hobart is a gentleman of the highest order. So I'll convert. I'll translate for the rest of the group.
James, that
yeah.
was my first year following the
Fraser-
sport. Fraser won that one. Go ahead. Tell me what you thought about him from that weekend. Then I have a follow-up.
I mean, it was apparent how fit Matt was just because there were a couple workouts. I remember there was this burpee front squat handstand push-up workout, which I think I did well on it. I think I finished, I don't know, in the top 5 for that workout. And I did it, Matt was in the lane next to me. And I was having a stellar performance. Like I was, hitting on all cylinders. And I was trying really freaking hard. And I would look over to Matt, and it just seemed like he was still kind of just cruising a country road in 3rd gear. He clearly had more tools in the toolbox than I did in terms of fitness, and he spent. But I did beat him in the handstand walk, so that's my claim, my personal pride.
I remember that,
but I don't think I did beat him in another workout that weekend.
No, you had a great weekend. 1/16th finish, but everything else was 6th or better. But
was that stupid legless rope climb or the snatch?
It was event 5. I don't know. It doesn't tell me what it is here, but it was also Matt's.
I think that was the legless rope climb.
It was also his worst event of the weekend. But I remember that regional specifically. I was just getting into the sport, but even then I was kind of aware of who the big names were because I'd watched some of the previous game stuff. And that year it was Matt, you, and Craig Kenny who qualified, and the next 2 finishers were Spencer Hendel and Austin Maliolo. And I was like, man, these guys are definitely good enough to be at the games. They should be at the games. The year before, they took 5 from the Central region, and all 5 of those placed in the top 16 at the games. And that was, I was wondering if you guys were having conversations that time of man, I wonder if they'll ever change the format, because Austin and Spencer are obviously good friends of yours and have been for a long time. About can we, if there's regionals that have better athletes, can we have a system to get more of them in? And it still seems to be a relevant topic of conversation.
Yeah, where we talk, I mean, individuals who are highly concerned with their own performance are always talking about ways to help themselves get to the games. But we had a lot of conversations just about, this regional is better than this region, so this means that they should get more spots. I mean, we talked about that kind of stuff all the time. But at that year, I wasn't too concerned about it because in my head, that's when I started thinking about, and I remember Sevan said this to me a long time ago. He said, team is where all washed up individuals go.
I would never say that.
You would never. So maybe it wasn't you. You should fact check that then.
I'm pretty sure that's accurate.
And honestly, I think about that saying all of the time.
I'm not sure I necessarily agree because you're an example, and there are several others, including potentially most notably Pat Vellner and Jamie Green, and now Simmons, who first made the games on a team and then were able to make it the transition to qualifying as an individual.
Oh, I like that. I like that I know something about me that you don't. Maybe I shouldn't like that.
You competed at the game.
I made it first as an individual in 2009 and 2010. Yeah.
Yes.
But that was when, I don't want to say anybody could make it because I don't want to take away. That was still an important accomplishment for everyone who made it and won. But
you were at the 2009 games, James?
Yeah, but I sucked, Sevan. I got cut after, and that's actually, anyway, I got cut after the deadlift. And it was, it was a really important moment for me in my competitive career, just as well as my growing up. Was the 2 things that showed up at the games were the 2 things I never did and would always be most frustrated with and were the worst at. And it helped me go back home and was a nice lesson in realizing, hey, it's okay to work on your weaknesses. 2, if you find failure, it's going to happen. You just have to learn how to learn from it and understand that it's a part of the whole process, not that you're never going to fail, so.
So does this new information that you've given me now, which I did actually have documented, does this mean that
I was just testing
you were a washed up games individual 2 times?
I was a washed up games individual before that was even a thing. In 2010, and then I did team 11 and 12 and 13, individual 14, and then team. I just found some new coattails to ride. Boston. I had enough of Boston, and I rode down to Tennessee and competed with Mayhem.
Oh, wow. You might say coattails to ride, but you were definitely an integral part of that team.
That's why I said the coattails thing is because I just wanted to get you to say that. But thank you.
I mean, I remember watching. I was actually, you don't know this. I was in the front row center of the 2016 games. That was the year they had the 6-part individual finals. And you know, I think it was like the same workout, but each individual you had to choose who was going to go in heat 1, 2, 3 for the girls. Pegboard and thruster, yeah. And so, and I think all 3 of the men on Mayhem pretty much dominated their heat in that workout.
Yeah, we did well.
Who is the third man?
Matt Hewitt.
And you're not on the Mayhem team anymore, and Matt's not on the Mayhem team anymore.
I mean, I hope I'm not, because if I am, I've missed the last 3 months of practice. No, I stopped competing with Mayhem in 2016.
So, James, let's talk about that a second, and we'll like not make it so. I'll lessen the phrase. It's where washed up games athletes go to die. But what is the distinction? There's obviously, what is the distinction between going team and going individual? To I guess you can only speak about yourself, but if you want to speak broad. I like people who make assumptions and just blanket statements. But what is the difference? What's the mindset difference? What's the perseverance? Is there more pressure because you feel like you have to work hard for your team members? Is there less pressure because you can hide when you fail? Is it what is...
Yeah.
There is a smoking gun that it's easier, right? Because if it wasn't easier, and I can't speak for Rich, but if it was easier to go individual, then you would have assumed if he would have just kept going individual, that he didn't go team for some benevolent reason.
Yeah. I do feel like, and I think this gap will change a little bit, as you see more and more drawn to the sport and competitive side of CrossFit.
One more thing. And there is a distinction between going from team to individual, because then you're clearly using that team to sharpen your tool. But then there's a different distinction from when you go from individual, then, here's the loaded phrase, back down to team.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, and I definitely think earlier on, it was easier to go on team because a lot of people would do it. And a lot of people would say things like, oh, so-and-so is a good team athlete, which basically meant they're really good at 1 or 2 things, but they have these 2 giant glaring holes that they're unable to fix. And so we're going to have another person on the team who can fill those. I think that's less of the case now. I think the quality of competition on the team side has only started to elevate. From my experience, I don't know if I trained less in 2015, 2016 than I did in 2014. We might have trained less, like put less time in overall, but the training was far more intense in 2015 and 2016, for me at least, because it was one of the first times I was training with the sole intent of we're going to win the CrossFit Games. And so I think if you're really going to train with that vision, that intent, I think the training between individual and team is very similar. My sense is, that there is more time spent on the body as an individual. I think your training will be a little bit more rigorous. The volume will be a little bit higher. And that's just because more of it falls on you. I think from that aspect, it is a little bit more, a little bit more intense.
Let me ask you this though: is there anything you can do to train as an individual that can prepare you for the pain of the worm?
Yeah, don't be a dickhead.
I like this. I like this.
Gosh.
Educate me. Don't make me assume you guys know something about the worm I don't know.
No. The worm is hard. The worm is uncomfortable, but it was no harder or no more uncomfortable than anything you would do on your own. But the nice thing when you're on your own, you don't have anybody else to blame. When you're there and you fail to snatch on the games floor, you can't turn around and look at Sally and be like, Sally, it's your fault that the worm is hard. And I didn't notice this.
Tell me about what the worm is real quick. What is the worm?
The worm is it's 6 segments long. Now there's a 4-segment one. And each segment of the worm, weighs somewhere between 50 and 70 pounds. And it's
so it's long. It's like a giant hot dog.
It's like a giant hot dog / pillow.
Okay.
You know, and you can do various things with it. You can carry it on your shoulder as a team. Everyone can hold it on your shoulder, and you can squat. Everyone can lift it together. But needless to say, it requires, if you have 6 people lifting it, a lot of coordination and communication between your team and practice to do this well. And it's easier. It's the worm. And the reason I didn't notice this until I commentated. But one of the things I think we did really well at Mayhem, regardless of our fitness, is that we were very comfortable with things going wrong, and we weren't very likely to turn around and blame somebody else when something was going wrong. Our response to difficulty wasn't, well, whose fault is it? Our response to difficulty as individuals was, well, what can I do to help the team out? What can I do to resolve this problem? And I didn't notice this until I commentated, and I got to see the epic meltdowns that teams would have during the worm. And it turns out, if Sally's really struggling, as your team is doing, synchronized burpees over the worm, the solution is not to scream at her. And when you see that go down, it seems like a great idea when you're down there. Like, well, Sally's moving slow. I'm just going to yell at her as much as I can to get her to move faster. Seems like a great idea. And I think anyone who's been a part of a successful team kind of understands this concept. But that was like one of the best lessons I learned from the worm team competition, was, you can't be a dick.
When I would be down there filming, people doing the worm, and I would see the teams have a meltdown, the meltdowns were so bad that I couldn't even believe that they were a team. Like the way they turned on each other, I was like, holy shit, this is fucking intense. I can't even believe, it was nuts. It was nuts.
Yeah. If anyone gets a chance to talk to the judges who judged the games and regionals for teams and just, hey, run me through some stories of meltdowns you saw. Their stories are just wonderful,
James, do you like the return to the Affiliate Cup this year?
Oh, yeah, I do a lot. I like the return to the Affiliate Cup a lot. And actually, one of the things I didn't like about team competition is how teams started naming themselves like these goofy, names
we can just say
with NASCAR taglines of sponsors. And this is just world according to James, right or wrong, who the hell knows? But
you're always right, James.
Yeah,
you're L4, baby, L4.
That's all it takes. And I've been right for a while. No, I like seeing affiliates represented by their members and athletes. I thought that was a really cool idea. It's super inspirational. Obviously I'm a very big fan of, affiliates and the affiliate model. So it was something that I really always loved. And I liked seeing, CrossFit Mayhem rather than, I don't know, just some, 6 sponsors names in a row.
Yeah, and it's cool also with just the history. The Affiliate Cup didn't really mean it. It didn't really you couldn't really give someone the Affiliate Cup last year and feel like, or 2 years ago, and feel like that was an appropriate title for the trophy.
And it's really cool for people in an affiliate to get behind that. I think it's a really fun thing to be a part of. And look at how crazy people get about hometown sports teams. And imagine if you were able to train alongside that sports team all year long. And then what is the level of support and desire to go cheer them on? It's huge. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. I've always been a really big fan of the games. For me, the Open is something I absolutely love. It's our annual Who is Fittest test. I feel like it's adult Christmas every week. They announce a workout that you don't know. I wish the Open was 10 weeks long, and I know that the logistics behind that would be crazy. But I love the not knowing. I love the workout coming out. I love the fact that my mom can do it, and you can go on a leaderboard. You can compare your score with everyone else in the world. I just think that's so fun, to be a part of it in a bigger way.
James, you want to know some fun facts about the leaderboard?
Sorry, Brian.
Yeah.
I don't think you've ever been worse than 200th worldwide in the Open.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Wow. Wow, that's insane, dude. That is amazing.
It is really cool because that you're not in a good or bad thing, but you're not a name.
Pressure on me now for this year.
Well, the other fun fact is that you're currently sitting 30th worldwide in this year's Open for your age division.
I did notice that by chance the other day.
There are a lot
How
of.
old are you, James?
I'll be 35 in June.
Woo!
That's a good time of year to have a birthday if you're trying to be competitive in a Masters division, because you always have the advantage 1 month before.
Yeah, and I saw that the other day, and I was talking. My wife and I were about to work out, and I said, "Hey, I'm 30th in my age group," and I said, "Man, I didn't even think about competing in an age group." And now, I'm not as I haven't been in the last couple months as diligent in my training as I would like to be, and as I would like to be if I was competing. But I'm gonna keep retesting these open workouts and see what happens.
Well, this is pretty cool. Let me give you a list of people who are all currently in the top, I think, 100 in that age division. Dan Bailey, Guido Trinidad, Jordan Troyan, Julian Cerna, Kyle Kasperbauer, Blair Morrison, Joe Scaley, Jason Smith, Adrian Conway, Nick Block, Daniel Tominski, Miko Arompa, and James Hobart. That's a pretty cool list.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's a posse.
I thought did you say Bridges? I think his name's on there.
Oh, Bridges will never compete Masters, so I omitted him from the list. That's
that's
according to him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like some old guard competitors. That's pretty cool. That's really cool.
Where is Josh? Where is my boyfriend in the
He's doing well.
the 35?
We can look him up real quick.
Because James, I don't remember what year that whatever the first year was that I saw that my name was in an age category too. Even though I started CrossFit at 34, they didn't have the 35-year-old masters. I remember tripping. I remember like, wait, what am I doing up there in that group? I mean, I was still like 20,000th, whatever it was. But I was like, holy shit, I'm in an age group. It is a little bit shocking, right?
He's in 23rd, Sevan.
Overall, or in James's category.
23rd,
old man category.
23rd in the 35 to 39 after the first week.
Wow. Okay.
Well done, Josh.
I'll make sure to clip this and put it on my Instagram. He would love to know that he's 23rd in his age group.
It's funny though. I don't feel old. Or obviously, I'm the oldest I've ever been, but my body feels like the best it ever has. There are some things like I can't squat clean what I used to squat clean, and I don't think right now I could snatch my best snatch. But there are certain things I'm just as fit at. There are some things I'm better at than I ever was. I feel super healthy, but I will say that the only time is I have a friend. We have a couple who are really good friends of ours, and she just had her 25th birthday, and I'm like, oh fuck, I'm 10 years older than you. When I think of stuff like that, because so much happens in 10 years, and I'm like, when you were 5, I was 15. When you start doing that math, that's where I start to kind of be like, all right, I'm getting some good experience under me now. Like I'm getting some good years lived. Like, and it's just the last 5 years I've really started to think about that. But it took a while to get me there.
Wait another 10.
Yeah, right.
Then you're really gonna trip. There's this crazy. This is off subject, but there's a lot of statistics that come out. They'll compare people's wealth by their race. So they'll be like, the average Jewish American makes this much money, and the average Puerto Rican makes this much money, and the average Armenian makes this much money. But none of that information is relevant unless you know the median age of that demographic that you're comparing. And so I saw the other day, like the median age for a Puerto Rican in the United States was 25, and the median age for a Jewish person was 50. Well, then when I was 25, I was fucking homeless. When I'm 50, I'm balling in the $300 Montclair hat and the fucking Filson jacket on my $13,000 iMac. Not that I'm bragging, and my glasses from the Four Seasons.
Because I've been wondering why you've been wearing it this whole. I'm like, why is he wearing a hat this whole time? But you look good in that hat.
Because my hair is thinning. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You're gonna have that hair forever.
Oh my God! I put the nose and the hair on. It's just a giant, and the beard. It's just glasses. They go on.
Oh no, man, you look good.
But that's a good little lesson for people out there who get confused between correlations and facts, and just don't be manipulated. Don't just see something. Don't just see that it's a lot of old people dying from COVID and forget that they've also been drinking soda pop for 30 years more, and that age is just a correlate, and by no means even a top 5 correlate. That's my PSA.
James, has
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it.
Go ahead, Brian. I got a doozy that I don't even know. I got a doozy.
This is a question I always like to ask people if I think it's potentially ever happened. to them. James, has Dave Castro ever surprised you by asking you to test a workout for the CrossFit Games?
Wait! Before you answer that, what do you mean surprise?
Like
That's what I was gonna ask.
Chase Ingram,
James.
like Chase Ingram tells a story where he shows up at the games to commentate, and he gets off the plane and he has a message from Dave that says, "Are you in California yet?" And he says, "Yes." And he goes, "Come to the pier." And he gets out of his car, and Dave goes, "Swim around the pier as fast as you can." And Chase had no warning about this.
I've had nothing that drastic. I've had a couple times. I mean, I do remember one time we tested the standard, which was the 2 years ago, 2019 Fun Alley. It was 30 clean and jerks, 30 muscle ups, 30 snatches at 135. Probably one of my all-time favorite games finishes to watch, and events to watch at the games. But I do remember Dave asked me to come down to the ranch. I was in California. I was out there to test and film some content for CrossFit seminar staff. And Dave had me come down to the ranch, and I walk in the ranch, and it'd been a long day. I was pretty tired. And he goes, "All right, you ready to do this?" And I was like, "Right now?" He goes, "Yep, let's go." And I said, "Give me 5 minutes to warm up." And I literally loaded up a barbell, and he just looks at me and he goes, "You ready to do this?" And that's how most of my experience with testing goes. It would be like, hey, I'd be out at the office in Santa Cruz or Scotts Valley, and I'd give a text from Dave. He'd be like, "Hey, can you test something?" I said, "Yeah, I have time at lunch." And I'd walk in and he'd be like, "All right, you ready to go?" I'd be like, "Yeah, cool, let's do it." But no really big surprises. But testing's always really fun. It's one of my favorite things I've been able to do. For various reasons, I really like it. And it's just really cool to see that side of the sport from that side of it. It's super fun. Sevan's watching me suffer through some testing before.
Ooh, this last time I saw you do testing was brutal.
And what was hard about that too is I was, asked to test some hard shit, and I was certainly not at it was a low point in my fitness.
And you're pretty hard on yourself, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
like the elite athlete CrossFitter in you, I don't see that just in my normal interactions with you wherever we just brush shoulders in the in the ecosystem, but when you get behind the weights, you're serious as a heart attack. I could tell you were putting a ton of pressure on yourself. I mean, which was cool. I'm not saying it was a bad thing. It was cool to see it.
I think that, and I also, it's like, for me, in what competing in CrossFit gave back to me, if I have a chance to help improve the process, the testing process, for what the sport means to me is fucking immense. Like when I test a workout, I take it so seriously, because it's like, I want to be able to give, and sometimes maybe Dave's just watching me to watching me to enjoy me watch suffering, but I don't think that's the case.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I want to give back something to the sport that's real. I want to get it right, because it's so important to me. It matters a lot. So I'm glad it comes across as serious, even though there was no music, and I listened. Boz yawned at me while I was doing GHD sit-ups. That was devastating.
And Dave, sometimes in the testing, he'll just cut you off mid-workout and say, "Stop, we're going to do something different." Does that ever happen?
I don't think he stopped me in a workout, but we did have stuff we kind of changed on the fly, and we also had stuff we'd do a short sprint, and he'd be like, "All right, we're going to do that again right now."
I've seen him do that to people, Brian. It's usually if they're shit in the bed. You have to really be. Have you ever seen him do that to someone, James? Where they're mid-workout, he's like, "All right, take a seat," or he walks over and strips weights off, and I'm just like, "Oh, they're getting torn up."
Yeah, it's stressful. I mean, if you've been if you're a compassionate human and you've competed in the sport and you care about it, it's stressful, because you want to get it right. It's fun and you get behind the scenes, but I don't know. I feel a massive pressure whenever I've tested. I can't mess this up.
Yeah, you're setting the bar for the test, right? You're the tool that sharpens the tools. You're the I'm going to tell you a quick story. It's a little bit long, and then I want to put it in respect to your experience working out at CrossFit Mayhem, and with someone as dedicated to his craft as Rich Froning. There's recently been a big hugabaloo in the UFC world. There's a guy who's a representative of Monster Energy drink. I think his name is Hans Molenkamp. And this guy, I watched a video yesterday while I was riding the assault bike, and it was a photographer who used to work for him. And he was saying that he got paid a ton of money to work for Monster Energy Drink, and Hans was his direct report. Or no, he was Hans's direct report. He reported to Hans as his boss. And he talked about how he was he said he got paid a ton of money. He's in his 30s. He said he was new. He can't believe he got the job. He was just, he learned, it sounds like he's a self-taught photographer. Everything was falling in place. And he was at his nephew's sporting event, football game or whatever. And Hans called him on a Saturday and said, hey, I need you to come to LA right now and shoot something. And he's using that to complain about this guy, Hans Molenkamp. And I don't know what the bigger picture is, but the story really resonated with me, that this guy would say that he got paid a ton of money. He had this incredible opportunity as a photographer, the very few photographers get. And now he's complaining that, and Hans is clearly very successful at what he does, whether he does it the right way or the wrong way. I'm not judging there. But this guy's complaining that he was called from his nephew's football game on a Saturday. Now, the way I work, and when I work with winners and champions and hardcore people, like if I was with my kids and I worked for CrossFit HQ and Greg Glassman were to call me and say, or Dave were to call me, or Nicole were to call me, or one of my peers were to call me, or Bruce or whoever, and was like, hey, we need you to do this meeting. We need you to do some, this or that. I would stop everything I'm doing and do it, because I know that my lifestyle and everything I know is based on the fact of like, these people aren't asking me because they're half-assed people. He's not asking me. They're not like, Greg's never like, or Dave would never be like, hey, come to the ranch and film James Hobart just to fuck with me, or because he's being rude to me. It would be because you just happen to be in town, you're going to do the demo and you need someone there. And we're all a team. And I make a shit ton of money and I'm blessed to have this job. Like, you just have to, when you're with the best in the world at something, you have to be willing to, like, you have to change your assessment. You can't be bitching that you didn't get a 2-week vacation. Like, you really have to go to that next level, and you have to keep reminding yourself that you're working with the best. I can't imagine that regardless of what it's like to train at Mayhem, I think undoubtedly, unless he's fucking taking people into the basement and electrocuting their genitalia, it's an honor no matter what. We
did that once.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe it's not an honor. But I have to imagine it's an honor, and there has to be things that challenge people beyond what they expected, because they're not used to working with someone who clearly is at the tip of the spear. Like, there's gonna be the unknown challenges that come with working with someone like Rich Froning, a Matt Fraser, a Tia, and it's stuff that you can't even imagine because it's from the outside. And so, am I correct in assessing that? Especially since there's been, a little bit of, there was Matt came out and basically talked about his grievances with Rich, and then I think Matt Hewitt also came out. Maybe Rich just has something against people with the name Matt, but in all of my experiences with Rich, even through any drama that was with HQ, he was always a one-on-one with him. I'm not talking about the Mayhem Empire. I'm just talking about one-on-one with him. I've always experienced a familial relationship. And he's always been personally one-on-one when I'm looking in his eyes, a great dude. But I never trained with him. I was never under his tutelage. I was never part of that Mayhem Empire. But I'm just trying to paint a picture here for people who, because without judgment, what are the challenges, or what was it like? How many years were you there, and what was it like working with this team? And you said something earlier. There's a difference between and it sounds like it's a split hair difference between training to be the best you can be, which is what you've probably done your whole life, versus what you said you're training with the singular vision to win the CrossFit Games. Anywhere you want to dig in on that subject?
Yeah, no, I don't want to boil it down to a sentence, but like, great success takes great sacrifice and great obsession. And I don't think a lot of, it's, and anyone, any athlete, or if I meet somebody at a seminar who's like, hey, I want to be a games athlete, the first question I ask is like, cool, do you have a full-time job? They're like, yes. I'm like, great. Or how much are you willing to quit that job? Because I do think, and what's really cool is when you're around people who are really successful at one specific thing. I mean, guys like Rich still is in the sport, guys like Matt retiring, whatever. they are the absolute best at a singular thing. And when you get around people like that, you do start to understand that there is this tunnel vision toward the goal. And I love hearing when athletes talk about this kind of stuff from any sport or anyone who's really successful at a certain thing, about how focused they are and about how many different areas of their, there's no discussion about balance. Oh, my life's so balanced and I spend time here and it's like, there's no talk about that. If you look at somebody else, I love the Jordan documentary for this very reason. It was so clear how absolutely maniacally obsessed they were with the goal. And I think it's an important thing for people to see that, because the other problem with people who are successful and who people do when they do things very well, when they're great at it, is it looks easy. You talk about, someone like Nicole Carroll in her presentation in CrossFit, and when she does her tips videos, and when she speaks to us on seminar staff, I'm just like, wow, Nicole Carroll was born doing this. The longer I've known her and seen her prepare at her to be excellent, you start to understand like, oh, yes, she has great talent and great personality, but there's also something else going on here. When you see someone like Rich, who's had the success he's had in the sport, sure, maybe he has some genetic lottery that he won, and was a little bit better at than you, but also, and I remember we would finish a day of training and we'd be getting ready to eat dinner. And I lived down there for 2 years on and off. And Rich would look at me and he'd be like, we need to go for a run. And in my head, I'm like, it's fucking 10 o'clock. We're watching whatever TV. We just ate, whatever. I'm getting ready to go to bed. I've changed. I've showered. All right, we're going for a run. And it's really cool to be around that, especially if you have the same mindset. And I felt like I had that same mindset. Like I was willing to do anything to win. And I wanted to win so badly. And every training day, I was okay with walking away from the year and someone being like, well, you should have trained more handstand push-ups. I was okay with someone saying I didn't train correctly. I was not okay for me to walk away from the year and say, I have so much energy left to train more. I wanted to walk away from the season and say, I have nothing left. I gave everything I had with the tools I had and what I know, tools for you, and what I knew to get this job done. And that was the attitude we took toward it. And the longer you do it, you get smarter, you get more educated, you learn more tricks, you reach out to other coaches. But in terms of just raw effort and attitude toward effort, it's hard to be around if you're not on that same wavelength. It's really hard to be around. Because
what's hard about it? You can't even, is it like just so foreign? And I want to throw one more thing. I recently heard Ben Bergeron on a podcast, and he was making the distinction between passion's not enough. Yeah. You need obsession. And you use that word obsession too. So what's difficult about being around that? And feel free to state the obvious.
What's difficult about being under that, I think, is because not a lot of people are willing to sacrifice the comfortability that having balance in their life gives them to be obsessed about that one thing. It's an uncomfortable thing. And the other hard thing about obsession is everyone else, until they see your success, everyone else is going to tell you your obsession is stupid, is wrong, it should be balanced. And the reason that is because if you look across the population, not a lot of people, and maybe this is a good thing, but not a lot of people have the willingness, the drive, the ability, the tools, the upbringing to be obsessed about something. And until you get that success, if you're obsessed about something, everyone is a naysayer and a detractor about it, because it's so drastic to watch, it's so stark to see, and it makes other people uncomfortable. So it's hard to ride through that and stay committed to it because everyone else is telling you it's wrong. Oh, you shouldn't be training. You should be spending time with your family. You shouldn't be training. You're beating up your body too much. You're not going to be healthy when you get older. Oh, you shouldn't be, working 100 hours a week because you should spend time at your family. Like how successful is your company actually going to be? And it's so true and it's so cliche, but it's like, you have to be a little crazy. You have to be a little bit obsessed to be able to block that stuff out and stay focused on that goal. Because everyone who is obsessed might not make it to that, you know, extreme success, might not get that amazing achievement. But I'll tell you this, if you are not obsessed, you're not even going to come fucking close. Not even going to come close. And I get fired up talking about it because when you are around it and you are in it, it's and once you get used to it, it is super empowering. It's almost addicting. It's hard to let go of, but that's the thing. And if you're not someone who's willing to be in that environment, it's really off-putting. It's really off-putting being around someone who's so driven toward a single goal, unless you have that same goal in mind.
James, I got 2 questions about your training with Rich.
Yeah.
One is, did you feel when you first started doing that, like there was a certain period of time where you had to prove yourself that you could hang in that environment?
I never felt like I had to prove myself to hang in that environment. Rich and I had a pretty good friendship leading up to the point where we decided we wanted to do a team together. But I will say this, it was sort of like there was this dog eat dog, this Lord of the Flies pecking order, because Rich wasn't the only fit guy down there. It just seemed to be the case that like everyone else down there was fit. So if you wanted to stand out, you had to push yourself to be better. I mean, Matt Hewitt trained down there and he was a multi times regional competitor, and Dre Strom and Easy Muhammad when he was down there. I mean, just like everyone was fit.
Yeah, Dan.
And people would come through and visit Rich who were fit.
Yep. But you did stand out a little bit, I think. You have a lot of feature videos on YouTube of you and Rich doing workouts. Do you remember what the impetus for Fantasyland was?
Heber.
Really?
Heber was the impetus. Yeah. So Rich had toyed around with the idea of taking this team games workout where each team athlete did some version of Fran, 21, 15, 9 thrusters and pull-ups. They did like each version got a little bit heavier and more difficult. And so there's three Frans essentially, and that was the Fantasyland. And Rich toyed around with the idea of wanting to do the workout, and Heber was down there filming. He was making Rich's documentary at the time, and he was about to leave, and Heber, this was 8 p.m. at night. This is what people don't know about Fantasyland. This was the thing that we did after we had showered, ate dinner, sat down. Rich was like, Heber was like, I really want to film Fantasyland. And Rich goes, all right, we'll do it. That's what we did. We went out to the garage at 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, and filmed that workout. But that's how it rolled. I mean, that's just, that's how it rolled.
Can you, this obsession, going back, this obsession, can you transfer it?
This is something I think about a lot, because I've learned a lot of valuable life lessons in CrossFit. I've learned things like, discipline toward a certain goal. I've learned things like, how do you endure failure, learn from failure, make yourself more tolerant to failure when it occurs. I've learned a lot of really excellent life lessons where if I could just transfer them to other parts of my life, I feel like it would all come together. But, sometimes soft skills are really hard to port. So does the obsession transfer? I think it depends on who you are. I think you can be somebody who finds something in your life that you are passionate and obsessed about and driven to, and you will go chase that thing down like hell or high water. But then you might be someone who, once that thing goes away, it takes you a while to find that next thing. You also might just be somebody who has that
heroin.
Yeah, there you go. Or you might be someone who just has that obsessive personality where it's like anything you do while you're doing it, you're just absolutely mad about it. And I think one of the things I've learned as far as trying to be that obsessed about a thing again is not necessarily going out and find new things that you should be obsessed about. It's take a catalog of what you're doing in your life and cut out all the shit that you're actually not interested in, and parse it down to those bare minimum things. And I think it makes it a lot easier for that, I don't know if you want to call it a skill, but that trait to manifest when you're not worried about so much other stuff.
I lost 3 of my first 3, lost is maybe not the right word. I parted ways with my first 3 partners in film work, a few years with one, a few years with another, a few years with another, because they weren't as obsessed as I was. They weren't actually obsessed at all.
Yeah.
An example would be we're in the middle of making a movie and someone goes on vacation for 2 weeks. First of all, I could never go on vacation in the middle. I could never enjoy a vacation knowing I'm coming back to finish a movie. Mm-hmm. And 2, it just seems like ludicrous to me. Or we would go somewhere. We would go to, let's say, Boulder, Colorado for 5 days of filming, and while we were there, they would take a day off to go hiking. And I like, what do you mean? We came here to film and edit, and so those things. I get what I empathize. I can't imagine what it's like there, especially now, because the mayhem thing has gotten so big, and it sounds like that there's a pretty like Rich has a lot of wraparound support, and that there's a lot of people like around him, as opposed to like having direct access to Rich when I knew him, when it was really just kind of just the Rich and Hillary show. But I also sympathize with any time I hear anything about him. I really try to. I do remember like being around obsessed people, being around people who are winners. It's not like people will attack them or have issues with them, but like, hey, that's what comes with that. Like, that's the problem with having birds. You know, they're really cool until you realize that every time you let them out of the cage, they're going to shit all over your house. Or Godzilla would make a great friend, but every time he sneezes, he destroys everything you own.
Yeah.
It's like, well, dude, you can't have it both ways. This is, you know, it's nice. I appreciate you sharing that yeah, there is an obsession, and those are great examples you gave of like, hey, you have to be on board with that singular vision. Does that mean eating something and doing something as crazy as Fantasyland, or going on a run in the middle of the night? These aren't even isolated incidences. This is the norm, right?
Yeah, it was 100% the norm. It was, you know, and you also, I mean, you see I don't want to say collateral damage, but
and sorry, one more thing. And who is anyone to complain about that?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't things to complain about him, but like, you signed up for it.
Well, that was the other thing too, and I think people are so used to, you know, you're just used. Not a lot of people are like that, and when you see something that is not like you or stands out, it's like, you know, unfortunately, the first reaction of most of us isn't to be like, oh wow, that's so cool, you know, it's to kind of attack it or point out what's wrong with it, you know, or question it, which you know, for whatever reason is kind of a bummer, because there's also, you know, there's a lot of great lessons to learn there, and you can't appreciate it if your first reaction is just like, well, it's different, so it's stupid. They're just doing it wrong. You know. And it
paid off for him.
100%, and it still is. You know. Right. I texted him recently. We were chit chatting. You know, because I was laughing. You know, he's competing.
That answers that question, Brian. They're still friends, so we don't have to ask that. Okay, go on. So you text him.
Yeah, because he's competing this year with two athletes. From CrossFit Team OC3 and 4-1 CrossFit Team OC3, who was a big competitor of ours at regionals, and we were laughing about that. And I said, man, you're crushing it down there. And he was saying, yeah. He's like, you know, I think I got a couple more in me. And I said, Rich, from the outside looking in, it seems like you have 10 more in you. You know, it's just like, you know.
Before I cut him loose here, Brian, do you have anything else you want to? Something that we could make James feel uncomfortable and turn red?
I'm already red. I'm Irish and I got bad lighting.
No, man, this has been awesome. I really have enjoyed this conversation. It's cool to get the different perspectives that you bring to the space. There are, you know, some people like you that have been around a long time that have these different, you know, buckets or arenas of the space that they fit into, but they're few. They're few and far between, and you get access to them all the time, but not everyone always gets to talk to them and hear from them. So it's, and including me. So it's been really fun.
I'm glad to hear that. I've been waiting to have a podcast with Sevan and you for a while. So I'm super excited to finally be here. Sevan was a lot nicer than I thought. He played really nice today.
Well, yeah, the reason why is because I like you.
Thank you. I like you too.
No, but I'll go after people. I mean, I really like Josh too, and I fucking slam him in his anus all the time. But I also, there's that delicate balance between you're on the inside doing the good work from the inside, and I'm trying to do the good work from the outside, and I don't want to. I'm avoiding conversation that would make it challenging, where I would put you in a spot to say anything negative. You know, I'm not interested in like. I'm not interested in doing anything to hamper your ability to do your good work. You know what I mean?
Well, I appreciate that.
Final question. You're married.
I am.
Why, what made you think that you should get married? Why did you get married? What's the point of getting married? What is marriage?
I'll sum this up easily.
Try not to stammer like me. Try not to stammer. Both of us can't be stammering.
Yeah, no. It was contagious. The two things: I found someone whose life I wanted to be a passenger in for as long as possible. That was thing one. And the second thing is I found someone who I wanted to be in a partnership with and build something. I wanted to build something myself, our relationship, watch her build together. I mean, that was it. And it was to some extent something like, I was like, oh, can't quite explain, you don't know you till you feel it kind of thing. But those were the two big things. Like I met my wife, Cassandra, and actually it was after that rope climb event at 2014 regionals. And I was like, I'm really interested to watch her life grow, and I want to see as much of it as possible because I've missed a lot of it so far. And, since then it's just been trying to get to the point where we can continue to do that successfully for each other.
But why do you have to get married? Why couldn't you just by married, I mean, like you guys had a ceremony and you guys did sign some papers with the government and shit like that, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually, and I've been someone who's always been really against this idea that the marriage is what makes it legitimate.
Me too.
And I don't just want to say we got married just because it's like you can be married and still be a really shitty partner and do all the wrong things. And you cannot be married and do all the right things and stay with somebody and have a really successful relationship throughout your entire life. So it wasn't to me as if the marriage is what made the relationship. I think for both of us, it was just something we both really wanted to do. And I don't want to say it's not it was just the smart thing to do from a finances standpoint, because that certainly wasn't it. But it was just another adventure that we really wanted to take together and participate in together.
You wanted the experience of getting married, and you found someone who wanted that experience too.
Yeah.
Your parents are divorced.
They are, yeah. Yeah.
And is your dad still alive?
I believe he is.
Okay. You don't see your dad?
No.
Super important to stay married.
Yeah.
If you have kids.
Yeah.
Super duper important. Not all of them are going to turn out like you. Parents who get divorced don't have kids like you. You're really like a fucking outlier.
I have an amazing, the network of mentors I found in my life, and my mother, and now, my wife, have been able to share with me a lot of the things in the world I think I would have missed out on because of my parents getting divorced.
I didn't want to get married and I didn't want to have kids, and then I had kids, and then I was concerned that if one of us died, it would be just easier legally if we were married. And then we got married, and we just got married in a courthouse, but they still the lady comes out. It was pretty amazing too. I don't remember where she was from, but she was Asian. She had a crazy strong accent. It was hard to understand what we were supposed to repeat that she said. But then at the end, I think she was Chinese. She gave us a Chinese blessing too to our marriage. And I was actually quite moved by, she gave it her all. Do you know what I mean? She cared about us, even though it was some weird courthouse marriage. And I was actually here's my Jewish wife and I'm Armenian, and this Chinese lady's getting us married. And she said something in Chinese, and then she translated for us something about love. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. But since then, there is something different about my relationship with my wife. I can't, it's very nuanced, but I'm so happy we're married.
Yeah, me too.
I'm so happy.
Yeah, me too. I'm happy you're married, but I'm happy I'm married too.
Good.
Yeah. It was the first time I cried in front of people in a long time in my life. My wife held it together pretty well. And I'm experienced at speaking in front of groups. I was a mess at my wedding. But yeah, I was super happy we did it. It was so fun.
And kids?
Kids. It's funny because I was actually hoping you wouldn't ask this question. Just
okay.
Because
you can keep
and the only
hoping.
reason is because I just don't know yet, and I don't. We talk about it. It's something we talk about a lot. I think I personally have a lot of strong feelings about having kids.
Like not to have them, like the world's a fucked up place and not to have them?
Well, and I said that once, and my mom snapped back with a pretty good response. I said to my mom, I said, I don't want to bring a kid into this world because I think it's messed up. And my mom said to me, she said, James, as bad as the world can be at times, she said, the world I'm living in now is still better than any part of the world I've ever lived in. Ooh. And I was like, yeah, she hits, just like I said, she's amazing. Yeah, I don't know if that's something I want to do. I do think about it a lot. We talk about it a lot. And it's hard because there's no precedence for it. Like, do I want to buy another car? Nah, not yet. I want to wait until this one gets a little older. I don't know that. I have no thought process for that with kids,
If you want to trigger your wife, get her to like what happened with my wife is that we lived with people who were like breastfeeding and having kids and shit. And then all of a sudden she's like, hey, I want one. I'm like, one of what? She's like, one of those. Points at the kid. I'm like, oh, okay.
There you go.
So it was done.
Okay, well, now I know.
I cannot encourage you to have one or not to have one. I have no opinion. I was just curious for yourself. I think you would make an amazing father. Are you pretty alpha in your relationship with your wife?
I don't think I would call myself an alpha. I think we have a pretty balanced role in decision making.
I'll give you a test. I'll give you a couple questions and I'll give you an answer. So you see her, it's, what day is trash day for you?
I don't know. Tuesday. Let's call it Tuesday.
Okay. And, Monday night you see her like getting the trash out of the kitchen and start walking towards the garage door to take the trash out. What is your response?
I usually say I'll get to the trash, but if she's already doing it, I'd let her do it.
Beta. Okay. Well, it was great having you on.
I saw a comment on Instagram recently, and it was from a young lady, and she said, as soon as I hear men talking about alpha, a man say the word alpha, my eyes start to roll back into my head.
That's good. When my wife looks at me, that's the first thing that happens too. She's overwhelmed by my beauty. The only reason why I use trash as the example is because I don't know how to use power tools, like.
Yeah, see, I do all that stuff.
Yeah, I don't have any of that. So all I got.
That makes sense.
Okay, I'll give you one more question. Question. You want to go out? It's raining outside. Do you need an umbrella?
I still open the door for her frequently when we get in the car together.
Oh, that's good. That just shows that you were raised by a fucking woman. Because I was raised by a woman too, and that's the shit they teach you.
What's your umbrella question? Hit me with it.
It's raining outside. Do you own an umbrella?
Yes.
Beta. Damn, Hobart.
I don't think that's beta. I think that's being prepared, but I'll take it.
Okay,
coming from the guy who doesn't know how to use power tools, but
no, do not know. It's so funny. People are like, in all my videos, there's my Milwaukee tool case in my garage, and people are always like, "Oh, I can't wait to see what's in there." It's like fucking batteries and camera gear. The only power tools I have, my dad uses when he comes over.
Well, there you go.
All right, brother.
Hell yeah! Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, James. That was awesome.
Thanks, Brian.
James.